So let's move on to the NHL section. However, funnily, we didn't even predict where we're going to put the Montreal Canadiens as a team in the Eastern Conference, so we'll do that now. I personally think Montreal is one of those teams this year that could finish at the top of the conference, like many people think. But I also think they're the kind of team that could, quite frankly, miss the playoffs. Anything from Carey Price having a bad season to getting injured, of course. But when you start looking at their lineup and you say, well, maybe this guy will get injured or maybe this guy will get injured, and they're the kind of team that really hurts if they start losing some key pieces. And you can say that about any team, but I think the Montreal Canadiens are a little vulnerable to that. So I kind of, I'll say sixth, fifth maybe.
Yeah, I think they have a strong chance of being top 2 in the Atlantic, which would guarantee them a playoff spot.
Yeah.
Top 3 guarantees playoff spot. So I'll say that. I'll give them top 3 in the Atlantic. I don't even know what that would mean division-wise, but I think they're between 98 and 103 points.
Okay, so that would be a great year. I mean, they make the playoffs.
I think it would be a year consistent with the last pretty much 4 years minus last year.
Yeah.
I think anywhere that if they get anything similar to 2 years ago, 3 years ago, or 4 years ago, that's where we're heading to.
Yeah.
And I think we're a better team than any of those years.
I agree. And, so that's...
I just think that the Eastern Conference has gotten much better, though, since.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's the one problem. It's not
that
just
is
the
a problem.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Eastern Division, let's just keep going on that division. The top teams in the East for me are obviously pretty obvious. Washington, Pittsburgh, those teams are definitely be at the top. I could see Tampa, of course,
sure.
Absolutely. Florida, maybe again.
Florida has Huberdeau injured for 3 months, so that's going to hurt. That's going to sting.
I know.
But they did make some improvements to their defense. So
yeah. They could be.
Yeah, I think the top 3 in the Atlantic. If you just want to go, we'll have Tampa, Florida, Montreal in any order possible. Who knows? It'll be tight.
Yeah. How about the Rangers? See them up there?
And then after that, let's say just the Atlantic. I would say the only other team making the playoffs in the Atlantic.
Rangers?
No, it would be either Boston.
Yeah, Boston.
Or Detroit, maybe. But I don't even think Detroit's making it this year.
No, I don't think so. Detroit's scrambling a bit after losing Datsyuk.
Yeah. Buffalo, I don't see making the playoffs.
No.
Ottawa, not either.
No.
Toronto, definitely not.
No.
All right, so that's it.
Yeah,
so I think there's 4
the
teams.
East.
There's maybe 4 teams from the Atlantic. And then in the Metropolitan, which is the other Eastern, there's Carolina. No, definitely not. I think they're competition for last overall.
I agree.
Columbus.
I think they're competition.
They're either last in the last or they're going to do well.
Yeah, they might have a surprise, but
they do have Bobrovsky.
I think Tortorella's going to piss everyone off by the end of it, and
I think they're going to replace him early, and then they're going to go on a run.
Yeah.
The Devils, no. The Islanders, I think they could be a playoff team.
You never know.
The Rangers, definitely a playoff team. Philadelphia will be.
See, this is why this scares me.
Yeah, so for me, the 4 teams that, in my mind, there's 5 teams in the Metropolitan that are playoff teams for me. There's Washington, Pittsburgh, Philly, Rangers, and the Islanders.
That's right. See, that's why this scares me, is because when you look at the East.
So we have 3 teams in the Atlantic that could make it.
It's the Canadiens could easily be on the bubble if some teams are having good years.
But they luckily have a weak division. The conference is strong, but their division, they have Buffalo, who's better but still not there. They have
Boston,
Ottawa, and
who will be competing with.
They have Toronto, that's very weak.
Yeah.
Boston, I think, is weaker than people think. They added Backus, but they still have a weak defense.
Yeah, their defense. Hamilton hasn't quite worked out.
Hamilton's gone.
Oh, is he?
He's on Calgary.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
that's
right.
He
was traded for a first-round pick last year.
Okay. Well, anyways, why don't we actually talk about the rivals since we're on them? We just talked about Boston. How about Toronto? Toronto, I think, will do better than last year, but that's not really saying much.
I think they're going to do better. They might be, instead of last overall, be third to last overall.
Right. And I think they're going to be hunting for a defenseman anyways. They have their center.
They would rather, I think, not win this year if it was up to them.
Oh, they're still in rebuild mode. For me, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the minute they start spending their money, rebuild's over.
Yeah.
They're going for it.
I think Roman Polak will be traded yet again at the trade deadline. For the third year in a row from the Maple Leafs.
Well, they keep getting assets for him, so why not? It's like that PlayStation move. You just pick up a bunch of free agents and sell them, Anyways, Toronto still at the bottom, but I will say Toronto's doing the right thing. Just because they're at the bottom, I mean, they'd be at the bottom if they were trying, in past times. So, in 2-3 years, we'll be singing a different tune about that.
I think they're 3 years away from being a playoff. And once they're a playoff team, they're in it for 10 years. They're in it for 10 years.
They're in it for the cup too. So that's not going to be fun as Montreal Canadian fans. So
we got to win now.
You got to start mentally preparing or start winning now. Absolutely. And Ottawa finally.
I don't think they have enough.
I barely consider them a rival.
I actually think that the Derek Brassard move was a bad move for them.
I agree.
I think it might benefit them a little bit this year. I think having tourists back this year is going to help them.
Yeah.
They'll be a bubble team.
I think they'll be bubble too. They have the best Carlson.
Their goaltending it looks shaky.
It does.
Anderson's getting older and didn't have a very good season.
Yeah.
And the Hamburglar is.
Yeah, I find them streaky too, and sometimes they streak at the wrong times, the wrong way.
We'll see.
Yeah, I agree, but I think they'll be a bubble team that misses in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those are the rivals. Boston's the only team I think might make the playoffs, and that's good news for Montreal Canadian fans. Yeah. All our rivals suck.
Well, it's not that they suck. They're at different stages of development. It's probably a more politically correct way of saying it.
Yeah, I know. But, Yeah. Anyways, let's keep moving. How about the top scorers this year let's do the West quickly. Yeah. Let's do the West. Top teams in the West.
Let's say Central, quickly looking at it. We have Chicago, Colorado, Dallas. I think Dallas is going to have a bad year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I disagree. I think they'll be in it.
I think bad year meaning being a bubble playoff team.
Yeah, I think they'll bubble, but they'll make it.
But they won't be first overall.
No.
Chicago definitely is in.
Colorado. Nashville.
I think Nashville will make the playoffs.
I think so too.
St. Louis definitely.
Yeah,
I think Winnipeg is a playoff team this year.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Well, we're starting to run out of room there, dude.
Anaheim for sure.
Okay.
Calgary, maybe if they have their goaltending this year, it's going to be different with Elliott.
All right. Well, you haven't even gotten to the best ones yet, so.
Edmonton, no.
Starting to run out of room. LA and San Jose,
Edmonton could make the playoffs. LA for sure is making the playoffs this year.
Mm-hmm.
San Jose for sure. Vancouver will be, in my prediction, the worst team in the NHL.
9 or 10 now.
Yeah. Vancouver's definitely not making the playoffs, and they will be last overall.
Well, as always, the West still powerful. Yeah. They have really good teams. Put it this way, the 9th place, 10th place teams are going to be teams that'll probably be surprises. Maybe that should have, like he said, Dallas maybe, or maybe Nashville just miss, or St. Louis might just miss, or LA might just miss, or something along those lines. One thing I always like to do predicting those kinds of things is obviously I look at who made it to the final. San Jose, Pittsburgh. I think they're going to start slow, so that'll hurt, but they're good enough. They will make the playoffs. Now, as far as Stanley Cup predictions go, my rule of thumb is if you were in the final the year before, you're not going to win the cup. That's been pretty good rule of thumb for quite a while now.
And Detroit.
Well, yeah, but that was a while ago.
Not that long ago. It's 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, okay. They
each made it to the finals and they switched.
But if you're going statistically,
yes, Marion also, I'm sure he remembered that pretty clearly.
Well, no, but for example, a lot of people when Chicago does really well, like the next year they're really high on Chicago, and sometimes they're having problems making the playoffs.
Or they make the playoffs and they get out in the
That's correct. Yeah. That generally is what happens.
Yeah,
so
there is a low.
I am a little lower on those teams. I'm still high on them. Don't get me wrong. I think Pittsburgh could easily end up in the final. As a matter of fact, I do pick them as one of my teams. I think they will run out of gas, though, at some point. Another team would be obviously Tampa. Definitely in the East. I could see them in the final. Washington,
I could see Washington in the final this year. I think they're making. They made it to the conference finals last year.
Everyone thought they were going to do it this year, and
they made it to the conference finals.
I predicted they'd drop the ball.
But the thing is, they made it to the conference finals, and that was better than they'd done.
That's true.
So I think they're on maybe the San Jose sort of path, where it's just taking them a while to get there. But I think if you look at the competition in the East, I can't think of a better balanced team.
Yeah,
I really can't.
Yeah. So the West. pretty much covers the West. Let's keep moving along. This has been a very long podcast. Any dark horses? Any players stick out for you that people might not have heard of? I know you did a pool recently.
I did. I think there's a few players that I think could have good seasons. That I mean, good seasons meaning like a 50-point season that you weren't expecting.
Came out of nowhere.
Yeah, I read recently there was this guy Wenberg on Columbus.
Wenberg on Columbus, yeah.
When they got rid of Johansson, he ended up taking first line minutes, and his point totals I think was about 40 points last year. I think 30 of those points came after that trade. So that was a big plus for him. I think Lindholm on Carolina will get more ice time with Eric Stahl gone.
Absolutely.
He'll actually center instead of wing, which will be a huge difference.
Yeah.
Zibanejad has actually been playing with Kreider. Second line Rangers. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Draisaitl looks like he might be first or second line right wing on Edmonton.
Oh.
So there's a chance he's playing with Eberle and Lucic.
A player the Montreal Canadiens were very interested in.
Correct.
I have a couple. I mean, mine are a little more obvious than yours. You go in the weeds for those gems, something that's very important. Mine, a guy who's on the radar of people, but who might be picked very low due to the fact that his preseason wasn't very good, is Patrick Laney on Winnipeg. Winnipeg, as you said before, a very interesting team, chock full of offense. He'll definitely be playing first, second line minutes.
He'll be playing, I think the one drawback with him is the projections that I've read for him is probably around 40 points, and only because he'll be playing behind Wheeler.
But 40 points at the bottom of a pool is...
Yeah, but I think the problem is with most pools, they'll see they'll see his pedigree and they'll draft him much higher.
Which is my point, is he has upside.
Yeah,
absolute upside. And the fact that he's a bit under the radar due to the fact he hasn't made waves, I kind of like that, you know, as opposed to a guy like Austin Matthews, who obviously is going to get picked high. And
Jonathan Drouin, I think, is a great pick this year. He'll be getting first-line minutes.
Absolutely. The good call, Dave.
Another guy who's going to get big point increases probably Adam Henrique. He actually played junior hockey with Taylor Hall and Windsor, and now they're playing on the same line in New Jersey.
So that could easily be a quick clicking line, top line. And, New Jersey, any team where you're on a top line, you got to get points, you got to get goals. They're on the power play, so if you can get a piece of that in any pool, it's always a very good thing. Another player that I'm going to bring up, and that was a bit of a shock, is actually a dark horse that I think has all kinds of upside, and he's on the Montreal Canadiens. His name's Andrew Shaw, a guy who you could probably get in the last round, who I think could get 40-ish points. Like I explained before, a guy who might show up on the power play, might show up next to Galchenyuk, might show up next to Plekanec, very possibly ends up with 20 points. So don't
my general
don't
rule
blame
for,
me.
What I like to do in my last pick or two of a playoff pool, depending on how big the pool is, but if it's a larger 10 to 15 player league where you have 10, 12 players on your roster, I like to get young players that might have gotten 30, 40 points the year before. But that player might get slotted for more ice time. So there's always there's a potential they go down, but you could get players that all of a sudden can, get 50% more points than the year before. We think get a 50-point year, a 60-point year. Or you could always take Jaromir Jagr, which we've done for the last few years, late in the pool.
Also a sneaker. Every year.
People avoid him like the plague.
50 points, 60 points, that's put in the bank. And, even when he gets injured, it's keep going Jagr. We'll take those. Anyways, that pretty much covers both divisions. I wanted to bring up quickly also, I'm going to be personally following Las Vegas and all the developments over there during the year. I don't believe tickets have gone on sale yet. They've been forming preseason sort of groups for people to get their season tickets, but I'm really looking forward to seeing how that goes with the sale of season tickets and what they're going to do, what they're going to be called. Apparently the Desert Nights, the Desert this, I don't know. There was a bunch of ideas.
The Black Nights, Desert Nights.
And a lot of nights. A lot of nights.
Yeah,
so
definitely there's going to be nights in there.
I like the Desert Nights,
Sure.
The whole idea of putting a hockey team in the middle of a desert is crazy like Las Vegas. Yeah. I like it. I'm going to follow Las Vegas and see what happens on that front. Really weird situation.
I just don't wish them any success. I think it's one of my least favorite places in the world, and I don't want to see them celebrate anything.
Yeah, but it's also a place that you might end up going back to, and you can go watch a hockey game now.
I agree. For that, if the next time I'm in Vegas and the Canadiens are there, I would watch the game over seeing any of the shows that are there.
And as far as bang for your dollar, as far as Vegas entertainment, if anyone's ever been to Vegas, it's minimum $150 a ticket to anything that's worth seeing. The hockey games can definitely fill in some nice $50 nights, $60 nights per ticket maybe. I don't know what the prices will be, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're there. Something that's very interesting as far as entertainment options for all the tourists that come into town. So that's it'll be an interesting situation in Vegas. And finally, I just want to quickly talk about the teams that might have a crack at the first pick next year. I'll quickly say mine, Toronto, obviously. Mine's Columbus, and I think Edmonton again might just. I know that people are saying they might do better, but every year that team. I'm going to put him in the bottom.
My bottom three are in no particular order, but actually I would say my bottom team this year is Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's just too many holes and too many aging players at key positions.
Yeah.
Definitely Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
And third would probably be Carolina.
Carolina, yeah. Yeah, actually, Carolina getting a little positive news lately.
They have good young players, but they think that they don't have enough key veteran players.
I agree. When the season starts and the hockey gets serious,
exactly. That skill will get hit pretty hard.
I agree. So that's pretty much all for the NHL section. I'm going to take this opportunity to thank my guest for today, who's been more than helpful and informative. Thank you very much, Dave.
Very welcome. Thank you.
We'll have you back on in the near future.
Alrighty.
And... as far as the NHL goes, I hope they all lose except for the Habs. Rule of thumb. It's a good one.
That's it.
All right.